Coming up on today's episode.
Sorry, folks. Go see the movie. Is what we're trying to say. It's
So
crazy that you're saying this. I didn't even recognize that was her.
Wow.
Who said that? It was that damn narrator again.
The answers that you're looking for are lying just beyond the frame.
Hey, y'all out there. Welcome to Beyond the Frame. I'm your host for this episode, and I happen to be Joe Parente. And to this side, your right side, my left side, is Ryan Vanderhei. Ryan, how's it going?
It's going great, man. It's going well. Life's good. The Life of Chuck is even better. We're going to talk about that today.
How funny you bring that up, because that's the movie I think we're going to talk
the movie
about.
We're talking about.
Yeah. So keeping it germane, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I am a longtime cinephile and writer-director here in Los Angeles.
Right on. And I am an actor guy here in Los Angeles. Also,
I love actor guy. I love every time you say actor guy.
I don't know
great.
why I say that, but it just feels right.
It's so casual. I like it.
I guess that's
just
it.
An actor,
I'm not
dude.
an actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do that acting
fun.
thing. Yeah. And I also love movies, and Ryan and I are both, as we say, students of life. And we glean a lot of what we can from the movies that we see, love, and appreciate. And we're going to talk about Life of Chuck today.
That we are.
And before we do, just want to say, if you're seeing us on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe. We seriously appreciate it, and we always welcome your comments. As a matter of fact, we do have a super fan.
We do.
Out.
We've had somebody commenting on almost every single one of our videos. We have to give a special shout out to Horse Joint. Appreciate you for all the love. Thank you so much.
Very
and
much
we
appreciate
welcome
that.
any kind of feedback you have. How'd the movie make you feel? Did you enjoy parts of the discussion? Let us know.
Exactly. We really
love
appreciate it. We love keeping it going. So, The Life of Chuck. This was directed by Mike Flanagan, who also wrote the screenplay based on a short story by Stephen King, a relatively unknown writer who's really hoping to get his big break one day. It stars Tim Hiddleston, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Karen Gillan, Mia Sara, and Mark Hamill. So first I'm going to give a brief review and kind of overview of the movie without spoilers, and then Ryan and I will discuss the movie in more depth with tons of spoilers. So don't worry, I will give you the heads up.
Stephen King, he's so interesting to me. I think he really is such a dynamic writer because I think of him as like the horror Cabin, like It and Cujo and all these movies. And then he writes like Shawshank, Green Mile, Life of Chuck. Like he's such a. There's no way if I went into this movie and you didn't say that Stephen King wrote this that I would pick him out of the.
No, he's not a one genre trick pony. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
He is not just a one genre guy.
Yeah, he doesn't just write. He's not a horror writer.
Not at all.
Like,
and
this guy is so dynamic as a writer. It's very fascinating.
It is. I completely agree. And in no way did this ever have a glint of a horror film.
No.
To me.
But at times it did feel Stephen King-esque. Like there were elements of the story that I felt to me were very, and we'll get into in the spoiler section.
Okay.
That did feel like, oh, I can see there's a little bit of Stephen King there.
Yeah. Okay, fair. I look forward to getting into that.
Yeah.
And it's quite frankly, it's hard to give an overview or review of this movie without giving things away.
I know, yeah. Because right from the beginning, you're thrown right into.
Absolutely true. And the format does help propel the story, and I don't think I'll give too much away with that. But anyway, I'm going to give it my best, y'all who haven't seen it. So the movie is broken up into 3 acts and moves chronologically backwards in time. Don't worry, everyone's actually moving forward. But it starts in Act 3. Act 3, kind of like at the end, and moves its way back. And I think it's really fascinating the way it does because it has the effect of you retroactively thinking back to what you've already seen, and it recolors and gives you a different you see it happening, and then 20, 30 minutes later, you get a better idea of why that happened.
Yeah, because in the first act, you're just as confused as everyone else of why they're seeing the things they're seeing.
Exactly.
You're going, where is this going to go?
Exactly. And And in this Act 3 that Ryan's referring to, we see, well, the end of times. And it was the end of the internet. So, yeah, it really was the end of times.
That's the real bookend on life,
Exactly.
Once the internet goes down, we're all screwed.
Exactly. So we see, natural disasters, species going rapidly extinct. At least we don't see that. We hear it. And as some of the characters put it, it sucks what's going down.
Yeah.
We get very small glimpses of how some people are handling this. So one of them's Marty Anderson. He's an elementary school teacher, played beautifully by Chiwetel Ejiofor.
So good.
And he attempts to soldier on and keep teaching while you could say Rome is burning, the Titanic is sinking, whatever metaphor you want. It will apply to this.
Mm-hmm.
Felicia Gordon is played by Karen Gillan, and she's a medical professional, also trying to do her best. And we see a few others trying to cope against a terminal tide as things fall apart.
Yeah, crazy. I can imagine.
And all the while, mysterious billboards and posters appear saying, "Thank you to Chuck," played by Tom Hiddleston, for 39 great years. So we might all starve to death in a couple of weeks, but hey, Chuck, thanks, man.
Appreciate you, bud. Thanks for 39 great years.
You've done us a solid.
Yeah.
So to say that these billboards are tone deaf is the understatement of the end of the earth.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's got the same, expression of like, who is this guy?
Yeah, exactly.
Is he retired? Like there's advertisers? Yeah, what? I don't understand.
And you can't. He's just sitting there like with a mug, and holding a pen, I think. And
yeah, it just looks
sitting
like
at a desk. Hey.
It looks like a retirement,
It does, but he looks young.
Yeah.
So
he looks
39 years of doing what exactly?
Right, exactly.
We will find out. So people ask who Chuck is, and no one knows. And we don't either, yet. Act 2 and Act 3 introduce us to Chuck, younger Chucks, and take us back to his childhood, which was, not easy.
No, God.
Definitely not. And as the movie progresses, we get some answers to things that had happened earlier, but certainly not all of the answers.
Yeah.
So let's discuss aspects of the movie in a little more detail without spoilers yet.
Yeah, this is going to be tough.
It is. So once we meet Chuck, the protagonist, he seems like a pleasant enough guy, The narrator tells us as much. I'm going to ask you about that in a little bit because I know you have opinions about narrators.
I do.
Yeah, so I look forward to discussing that. But we see very little of what makes Chuck tick, quite frankly. We don't get to see... we do get to see a really fun dance sequence, and we get to see that Chuck is, light on his feet and creates great angles.
Yeah, he's full of life.
Exactly, but even he doesn't know why he stopped and danced. There's a woman busking playing drums, and he just feels moved to dance. And she does ask him later, "Why did you stop?"
And he can't answer.
He can't answer that.
Yeah.
And so we can't either, obviously. So the next act, again, will answer some of those questions. But I'm wondering, because we've seen so little of Chuck, are we engaged and do we care? And that was something that I was finding myself asking. So Ryan, I have two questions.
Okay.
By the end of Act 2, did you care? Did you feel engaged? And what did you think of the use of the narrator? Because if I don't know who if I don't know who the narrator is, my mind will not be quiet. I keep asking, who is that? Why are they talking?
Yeah.
So I want to, before we get into the spoiler territory, I'd love to hear that.
Okay. Yeah. So I think for me, by the end of Act 2, I think I was mildly intrigued, I think is the right way to put it.
Okay.
I was mildly intrigued because it was more of Kim coming from a place of, where is this going to go?
Me too. Yeah.
What is going to happen next? Like, I don't know where we go from here, but this is something that I was meddling on when I got out of the film the other day, was like, we didn't really, we got so little of Chuck at 39. We got so
we
little
did.
of older Chuck, if you want to say, middle-aged Chuck, if you will, that really this movie to me was about him as a child, because that's the character I most was able to relate to, or I got the most out of.
Yeah.
I really had no idea who the person Chuck was at 39 or whatever. It gave us nothing. It was just a dance, and then we were gone.
And that's precisely why I'm asking that question, because that's what I asked myself.
Yeah.
Because Tom Hiddleston is supposedly he's the lead, and yet I felt like they buried the lead, and I felt like I knew very little about him. And I love what he did with what little he had.
Sure. But to your point, we got like 15 minutes of screen time of the actual lead actor in the film.
Dancing.
And
primarily.
Like how much dialogue did he speak? I mean, maybe like 6-7 lines.
Brilliant scene with his neighbor. But that was Ejiofor's neighbor, Chiwetel Ejiofor's neighbor.
Oh,
I'll
yes,
get to
yes.
that.
Love that. It's interesting that they chose to spend so much time in that first act.
Well,
or should I say the third act,
and
that we see first of the,
agreed.
Without spoilers, it's kind of hard to.
I know.
But it's interesting to spend so much time there, because we had probably, I'm saying 30, 40 minutes before we went into act two.
Agreed. And I love him as an actor, and we're gonna get into that more.
Tom or
into Chiwetel.
Okay.
Ejiofor and his character. The school teacher.
Beautiful.
Wow. But I did ask that for a reason, because here we are through the second act. I'm like, I'm trying to care more. I want to care more.
Right.
I think that because the performances are fantastic, and I loved the dance sequence. I really did. I didn't know if I would. And after a while, I'm like, come on, how can you not like this?
Yeah.
You know?
Of course.
But I also found his not knowing why he danced. That's part of what propels you forward, I guess, with the story. But I found it pretty unsatisfying.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit frustrating.
It was explained to a degree later, but their explanation actually gave me more frustration.
Well, and to me, again, I'm trying to dance around spoilers here,
hard.
But giving like the reason we know, I guess later, why he chose to dance like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would he not know that about himself?
I can answer that, but it would be a bit of a spoiler.
Okay, so
so how
we're
about
coming
if we
up
do
on
this?
that.
Exactly.
I promise you,
we
folks,
will.
we're getting there soon.
So why don't we touch
us.
on exactly? Please.
Wait, so the narrator.
Yeah, go for it.
So who was the narrator, by the way? It was a voice I recognized.
Oh, see, I'm going on 4 hours sleep. Hold on, because I know I can come up with it.
I think it was. It wasn't it the guy from.
I can see his face.
I know, me too.
Oh
God,
my
I feel
God.
terrible.
Me too. And y'all out there, it's early.
Yeah, but for me, I feel like I didn't. I guess it's just one of. I had to Nick Offerman. Yeah, 100%. Knew exactly. Yeah, that voice is so. But to your point, and what I've spoken about before on the podcast that you referred to, narrators to me, it's got to be like a really specific reason. And I know some books just have narrators because it's kind of like told from a third party perspective. And I get that. And I guess like I just had to suspend belief here, and I just had to like.
Me too.
All right, I guess it's just because it's a book, and
me too. It was challenging though, because Nick Offerman had he added a certain type of personality, and he was very lighthearted about the whole thing.
Yeah, and
he seemed to have a dynamism that adult Chuck didn't have.
Sure.
But it also just made me, is this the voice of God? Like, who the fuck is this?
I know. And for me, it's like so much more satisfying if it comes to the end and the narrator is a character in his life.
See, exactly.
And
then it
reading
makes sense.
a letter, or, you know what I mean? That to me is so satisfying.
For me too. And so this was not Chuck at any age. It was it wasn't a character in the movie.
It was just
it was
voice.
A voice to add exposition.
Sure.
For all the things that all the depth they didn't give him that filled in verbally. Like Chuck is this and Chuck has done this and okay, we don't get to see it.
Yeah,
we're just being told that.
Totally.
And I that's where it's like, I want to love this. I want to.
I know, yeah. It's a little bit frustrating, yeah.
So one of the beautiful things was Chiwetel Ejiofor. We've absolutely hammered that. But he just adds a warmth and humanity to just about everything he does to me. Even when he's the ultimate villain, like he was in Serenity, I loved him.
He is so good.
And I loved Mark Hamill as Chuck's grandpa. So much fun to watch.
Oh, he was so great.
So much fun.
Such a teddy bear.
Such a teddy bear. And then Mia Sara was engaging and endearing as Chuck's grandma.
She was great.
Yeah, she really was. Cody Flanagan and Benjamin Pajak as younger Chucks were really sweet. And Matthew Lillard, that's the neighbor, as Chiwetel Ejiofor's neighbor, killed it in his 2 minutes on screen.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
He was just so good.
That was a pleasant surprise because I haven't seen him in a lot recently.
Yeah, me either.
And he's a 90s favorite.
Yeah, I was happy to see him. I did think of Scooby-Doo, I have to admit, when I saw him. But he was just so good.
Yeah,
and I love when people that you recognize have a small role in a film and just hit it out of the park.
Yeah, he was impactful.
Yeah. And not an easy role to play.
Totally.
You know, this was the end of times. How you doing?
You're right.
You know?
Yeah. How's things on your side? Yeah, exactly.
So it's just to add context of the kind of viewer I am. Look, I cry at commercials, okay? And I provide that context because I can be a light touch. And as I've said, there were moving moments in this, and I absolutely loved aspects of it. And it attempts to make us ponder some big questions, and I really appreciate that. And it was beautifully shot. And because of certain things that nagged at my mind, which we'll get into more, I was left liking it, enjoying it, but not loving it.
That's a great way to put it. I feel the exact same way. Where it was like I went into this really wanting to absolutely love it.
Yeah.
It seemed like like something that was perfect for the podcast. I mean, look, we started this podcast to explore what lessons we can learn from a movie. And looking at the trailer for this, you're like, oh, this is our bread and butter.
I totally agree.
And then I think the potential was there.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it did hit on some things. It did ponder some, big questions. It did make me think. But I didn't feel much. And
Me either.
I was never emotional. And I'm an emotional guy. I cried at movies all the time.
Yeah. Okay, so we're both adding that particular context.
Absolutely.
And it didn't hit me either.
Didn't hit me.
And so in that sense, for me, it was unconvincing.
Yeah, it was a bit of a letdown. I don't want to take anything really too much away from it because there are elements I like and the performances were fantastic, but overall, I think it came in a little bit under what I was expecting for it.
Yeah, which is
a bummer. Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we see if our stars align on
I
this
do
one?
have to look at this one because I saw this a little bit ago.
Me too.
But let's see what kind of grace I gave it.
Me too.
I always try to give it the benefit of the doubt here.
Me too.
Okay, so we're looking at the stars that we gave on Letterboxd. And
because I gave it on, 5 days ago, I was like, oh, is that what I gave it?
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so let me see. I think wow, you just threw me for a loop now.
You have the same reaction. Sorry.
You kind of threw me for a loop there. I'm thinking you gave it 3.
You are correct.
I gave it 3 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was going to be my guess. So.
Yeah. I gave it 3 too.
Okay. And that shows, look, we did appreciate what it did well.
I've got to give it the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. It was a valiant effort. It tried, and I think there were a lot of performances and elements that I could appreciate, and I think I can't knock it too hard.
Me either.
So, yes, I didn't feel much. Yes, I think there are some things that it could have done differently, but overall, decent movie.
Yeah,
it's okay.
It is a decent movie.
Good.
I think that's a good way to put it. I wouldn't discourage people from seeing it.
No, you'll enjoy it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
completely.
And it'll ponder some big questions. So
yeah, and I'm going to touch on some of them because one of them in particular I actually found upsetting. But I had to think about. I've had a different kind of education.
Okay,
and so that's where when I saw it was the reveal at the end, what was behind that locked door and how that was handled.
Okay, interesting. I like this. I can't wait to get to this.
Okay. So first of all, why don't I throw out some fun facts? Interesting facts about the making of this movie.
Did you have a hard time finding these because this movie just came out? Yeah.
Yeah, there was not a ton.
A little bit of digging.
There was not a ton. First one is Mia Sara of Ferris Bueller fame had retired from acting in 2013, but after seeing Mike Flanagan's movie Midnight Mass, she told him that she'd come out of retirement to work for him. I love that.
It's
So
crazy that you're saying this. I didn't even recognize that was her.
Wow.
I didn't even put two and two together
Until
you
I
just
said that, and
Ferris
then it's like
Bueller,
the
and
light went on.
Whoa.
Now you know who we're talking about.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, yeah. She looks great.
Doesn't she look great?
Yeah, she looks fantastic. Wow.
And, God, I had grandma envy. I love the I love the fact
grandma envy,
which is something I've never felt in my life.
Great. She was so light. She was so full of life. She was so bubbly. Even like given how difficult the circumstances were.
Correct.
She was just such a light in Chuck's life.
She was, and I loved how they showed the progression of them mourning. And one of my thoughts was, it's one thing to mourn like the death of your son, daughter-in-law, daughter or son-in-law, I can't remember which, and a grandchild. But you've still got a grandchild right there with you.
I know, and you
so
have to show up.
Please show up for him.
Yeah, he needs it.
It was clear that there was a period of mourning, but then you saw when one day she's making dinner and she turns the radio on and starts dancing a little bit. And then Chuck comes in the room, and I love how she called him little brother.
Yeah.
I don't know whose call that was to call him little. I mean, probably in the script. I wish
totally.
I could have found
in the
that
book,
out.
Yeah.
But I just love that she called him little brother.
Yeah, it's great.
It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, fact 2, this was shot in Mobile, Alabama to give it that small town feel.
Came across.
It was probably also done because it's a lot cheaper than shooting here in LA. But that's a rant for another time.
Yeah, no, that makes 100% true.
So, fun fact 3, the youngest Chuck, because there were 4, 3 adolescent and 1 adult. The youngest one is Mike Flanagan's son, and he's a cute kid. Mike Flanagan is our director, screenplay writer.
Yes.
Yeah. And he was so cute.
He was a great addition.
He was an awesome youngest Chuck.
He was.
So now we're officially going to get into spoiler territory.
Okay. Yes.
So we can take.
We're here.
Yeah, right.
We're taking the chains off and we're ready to dive in here. Okay.
Exactly.
Welcome everyone.
So for better or for worse, we're going to dive in. So people. First of all, I had some challenges with this movie. So here's the first one.
Okay. I'm all ears. This is great.
People were not taking the end of times so hard. I mean, it seemed, it just didn't feel cataclysmic enough to me. They seemed resigned to it, and we were told, like by the neighbor, we've gone through the 5 stages of death. I don't know. It just, there was an element that to me was missing.
You wanted to see more hysteria?
I guess it just seemed, so it's like, where is everybody? And, we saw the hospital or whatever it was, no patients. It was just like, it was kind of empty. Where did everyone go? We've heard that people have been killing themselves and stuff, but everyone's gone. Where are they?
Yeah.
And it was just a small question, but it just
nagged at you.
It didn't comport with reality for
Sure.
me. Granted, we haven't seen the end of times.
So we don't know what it's going to be like.
Yeah. But I don't know, fighting, looting, craziness. Yeah, but resignation. I guess we were just at the, like this guy said, the 5th stage of mourning.
Acceptance.
Of acceptance. And yet Chuck not Chuck, Marty had still been teaching. Like that day, there were still students at school.
Yeah, he's coming home, kicking his feet up, watching some TV.
So we're still doing the day-to-day life, but we're resigned to the end of times. I struggled with that.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I think the only person to me that added a lot of depth there was the Karen Gillan character.
Completely
I did feel
agree.
like she was very distraught and added a lot of reality to it. She's the person that I was kind of latching on to as like giving it life to this situation, because she was pretty panicked.
She was.
And pretty freaked out.
But like, look at the mortician and the walk that he and Morty had. Could have been just two guys who were, heading home from bowling or something. I don't know. And
it wasn't very you're right. You're totally right.
It was like the end of days in Mayberry or something.
In Mayberry. Yeah, that's
For those of you who are 90 or older, you'll get that reference. I think you got it. So awesome. Yeah. The second, we contain multitudes. This was something that was discussed in the movie, and I can appreciate that. And yeah, I'm on board with that. And yet, as Chuck passes away, so do seemingly sentient beings. Okay? Marty is sitting there with his axe, and Mars goes away, and another star goes away, and their world is vanishing, but they are sentient beings that we've been following. And yet, they were an aspect of Chuck. That doesn't jive with me.
Okay. Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Yeah, I got it. I got it once he had the conversation with the teacher, as he's a young boy, and the teacher, like, we contain multitudes.
Right. And
everybody who's ever
too.
existed in your life is here. And so I guess we're supposed to be okay with the fact that entire first act, which was actually the third act, was just
Chuck's inner multitude.
Correct. Because we see later, obviously, like when he's in school and everything, all the people that were in there were actually people from his life.
Right, which I get. But to me, it made everyone's existence mutually exclusive to Chuck's. If there is no Chuck, they don't exist.
And it does kind of make a lot of that first act, that's also the third act, God, that's so confusing to me, be very, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't mean anything because those people don't really exist.
They don't exist.
They're just in his head. So those conversations and
that's right. Did they actually
existential
happen?
Crisis and
right? Was there? So it almost gave them an AI feeling, because were they real in the first place?
Yeah, they're kind of just
they were just
of
one
his imagination.
Exactly, and that really didn't sit well with me.
I get that totally. That makes sense.
And
that's why there was like the weird element of, it's like Chuck's coming up on their house windows. I hated that.
Oh yeah, me too.
It was like
that made no sense.
It was a neon sign in everyone's window that was like Chuck.
Yeah, that made no sense.
It was
whatsoever.
very bizarre. Yeah, it makes you feel and maybe this is like why we're kind of digging at why we didn't feel anything, is because it didn't really matter. That whole entire
that's right.
What would have been to me very moving would have been that first and third act we saw of Chiwetel and Karen Gillan and everybody's and the Matthew Lillard conversation, like all that I think would have moved me. But to know that it was all just here.
Retrospectively, you realize, they really didn't even exist.
It kind of like...
No, that agitated
takes
me.
Away from it. Yeah.
It really did.
Totally.
And I thought it cheapened the story.
Agree.
It took away that depth that we thought we were experiencing of these people earnestly trying to cope with things falling apart.
Yeah, they don't exist.
They don't freaking exist.
They wouldn't have.
Also, just the "Thank You, Chuck" poster. This isn't even in my copy, but thanks, Chuck, for 39 great years. Who would have said that? His grandmother? His wife? Thanks, Chuck, for 39. What?
That's
Who
what she
would have said that.
Yeah, that's what the wife says.
The narrator. Maybe the narrator would have said that.
Yeah. Well, his wife does say that when he's on his deathbed.
Right, but does she say it like that?
No, for sure not.
Because the poster absolutely has that kind of cheery, thanks, Chuck.
Yeah.
It wasn't "Thank you, my beloved." It wasn't, you know what I mean? Like if his wife had said that, you really she would have been "Thanks, Chuck."
This feels like this feels like, it's so funny. This feels like a idea that I might have that I would never pursue as a writer, because I would be like, it's too big, it's too grand to land the plane safely. Well, and I think it's exactly what happened.
Well, perhaps, and this is part of a trilogy that he wrote. So maybe it was Stephen King. This is within it's a short story within I haven't read the book. But it's not I don't think it's a completely fleshed out book in and of itself.
Oh, okay.
And that might explain some of this.
Yeah, God, it just felt like it's a cool concept.
Yeah.
Of like the people we see in our lives and like in our minds, like they're there for, I don't know. It didn't stick with me either. It didn't quite.
Yeah,
I didn't love it.
Interesting. We both had that impact. So another thing I want to touch on, and another thing. Listen to me. I sound like a grumpy old man. And another thing.
This
you
movie
kids
apart,
get
man.
off the lawn.
We gave it 3 stars, and we're decimating this thing. I mean, we're flattening this thing, man.
But that's because the things they did well, they did really well.
And the things they didn't do well, they didn't do really well.
Yes, right. So, okay, I'm revisiting my stars.
Sorry,
in my head.
folks. Go see the movie. Is what we're trying to say.
Do these guys know what they're doing? What?
Who said that? It was that damn narrator again.
Exactly.
That's Nick Offerman. How the hell did he get in here?
Oh my Lord. Okay, so the third thing. The third thing, Ryan, and another thing.
Okay.
The quote, waiting is the hardest part. And this is something that Chuck's grandfather says. Mark Hamill character. And I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
So my thinking was, stop waiting and start living, you old bastard. I mean, Marty became a bloody accountant, possibly a great one, who helped people as much as his grandfather did. Perhaps he was a magician.
Chuck.
Sorry, you're right, Chuck. Thank you.
Chuck became yes.
I need more coffee. So Chuck became an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, he was a magician with numbers like his grandfather. We don't know. When we met adult Chuck, he had undiagnosed brain cancer, hence he didn't know why he was dancing. But did he strike me as a guy who lived with no regrets? Actually, I don't know. The lack of development of Chuck and the life he lived after seeing his death left me wanting more.
Okay, so this is what you were talking about earlier.
A lot more.
About how they, at the end, like the whole movie, if you haven't seen it, there's a, what does he call it?
I know.
An attic. Let's just say an attic.
We'll say an attic.
There's an attic in the house, and the door's locked. There's a padlock on it, and the grandpa
like
keeps...
a turret, but yeah.
He keeps him out of there. And eventually, at the end of the film, he finally goes up there, because he gets the keys and grandpa's, items. And he goes up there, and he opens it, and he sees himself dying at age 39.
And he doesn't know his age. He doesn't know.
Sure.
He just sees himself in a hospital bed.
Yes, and
dying.
he doesn't look very old.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can glean, okay.
Exactly.
And the message, I guess, is make the most of your life because you never know when it's going to happen.
And did we see Chuck do that? No.
No, we didn't get any of that.
We didn't get any of that.
We got...
And also, in retrospect, because his grandfather kept this room locked so that Chuck could not see it, so that no one could go in there, because what's in there is a nightmare. And he was really agitated by it. Now, granted, we found out from Grandma, I believe, that he saw the deaths of like a young person who got, I think,
a kid that got ran over by
right.
a car.
Kid got hit by a car, and he saw his mangled body,
and he saw his
his
son.
He saw his son. His
daughter-in-law.
He saw right.
He saw himself eventually.
And he saw himself.
This is the Stephen King I was talking about. That's very Stephen King-esque.
Right. And okay. And
I like that.
Me too. I love that.
I like that reveal.
I guess it made me wish that Grandpa had a better certain type of education, so as to not fear it and not be.
Oh, this is what you were talking about.
Yeah.
How you were taught. You had a different level of.
Yeah.
Can you explain on that? Can you expand a little bit? What do you mean by that? How would you have handled it?
I put myself in that position to be asked that question.
I'm curious the audience too. If you opened a door and you saw when you were going to die.
And that's where I had to cut Grandpa some slack too, of course, particularly because you don't have anyone to talk to about it. But to me, I would hope that I would see that as, first of all, the great inevitability in life. Nothing to be shocked. Granted, you're seeing it. Okay, I have to admit, I've had some unusual events, so that he saw that, I'm like going, okay, cool.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
And then I think about how Grandpa lived his life, and it made me, I guess, a bit sad for him that he wasn't grabbing it more by the reins and just really loving it, because it's gonna end for all of us. He got to see the reality of that. To me, that's a gift. And he didn't look at it as a gift. He saw it as a curse, as like it was a nightmare.
Yeah, it didn't affect him in the way that you would hope it would.
Yeah, and
he went the opposite direction.
Exactly.
Became a drunk.
Yeah, he did. And that made me a bit sad for him, and I just thought that was too much. And granted, what a bizarre thing that would be. And I can say, oh, if I saw it, I would have handled it no problem. I don't know that.
Sure, 100%.
But I guess it just made me a bit sad for him.
Totally.
That he didn't take that as a really massive opportunity.
And now that we're talking about this, I'm thinking too, it didn't really seem to, as you said, affect Chuck. It's meant to be this like a big emotional reveal at the end of the film, and he sees himself. And then when we see...
And then that's it. The movie ends.
And then like if we retract to earlier when we had that small blip of Chuck before he dies...
Right. Well,
none of it would tell me that what he saw had a profound effect on him.
Exactly.
He didn't live his life any differently. He just became an accountant and like.
That's right.
He just lived a normal life.
That's right. And we also, the impression was that his dancing at this the drumming busker was potentially a very unusual event. Something maybe out of character for him. And I would hope that would have been absolutely 100% in character for a guy who already saw, I'm going to pass away at an age that looks a lot like me right now.
Well, yeah, 100%. And I feel like the trailer made me feel that way.
Right.
I saw the trailer for this.
Here's this guy who's living it to the fullest.
And he's dancing and he's like got this essence about him that breathes, oh, I'm living life to the absolute fullest.
And that's where when he was asked totally. And if the drummer had asked him and he would have said, if he would have alluded to, I had an insight when I was young and something that just showed me that, man, this is so precious. It's so fleeting. Carpe diem every day.
I wanted just a little bit more from him, but I guess we're supposed to believe that was the early onset brain cancer.
That's right. And that to me was a bad call.
Yeah, fair.
That was a bad call.
Yeah, it left me feeling unsatisfied.
Because you could have also had him answer it in a particular way that was intriguing enough that you'd think, what happened? What did he see as a kid?
Right.
Because he could have said, I saw something as a kid profoundly changed my life.
Yeah.
Oh.
Anything.
Interesting.
Anything
other
more
than why did you dance? I don't know. But we gave it 3 stars.
Yeah,
anyway,
right.
The
this
next
might be the first time that's going to go down. Instead of going up at the end, we're going to put this puppy down.
Goodness.
Let's go 2.5 real quick.
Well, and while I'm ranting, I do have one more.
Okay.
And this was Carl Sagan's Cosmic Calendar. And it's great for this is the whole thing of if you shrunk down the history of our universe onto a calendar of January through December. I think most people know this.
I love Carl Sagan.
Me too.
I'm massive Carl Sagan
and
fan.
I'm really into astronomy, and
yes.
And so anyway, that the cosmic calendar is great for creating context about the amount of time it took for our world and all species to form. But what does that do for a person when the world is coming to an end? So the world is ending, and Marty is telling his ex-wife over the phone about Carl Sagan's Cosmic Calendar.
And he says we might be in the last minute, last second. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay, dear. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for telling me that. It doesn't really have a purpose.
It was really a fascinating non sequitur. I guess it wasn't fascinating because I was already aware of Carl Sagan's calendar.
Me too.
This wasn't a new concept to me at all.
And we see that young Chuck watches it when he's super young.
Yeah.
On the TV.
Right.
And then that's how it...
but it didn't.
Again, you're trying to do. It's a really difficult task to do this. This is a tall task to ask.
It is
of a written piece to land this plane successfully, and even Stephen King can't do it.
Agreed. So it was. Did it have us pondering big questions? Perhaps, but it. If there were swings and misses, unfortunately.
Yeah. You're right. That Carl Sagan. What really is the point of that?
What did that have to do with
just
anything?
to give context to what's happening?
Right.
I mean, hey, the world's ending, and here's maybe why.
Right, and we're the last 20 seconds of December 31st. Okay.
It's kind of like if somebody was like, the world's ending, and I went, yeah, the Mayan calendar ends on today.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were like, okay,
yeah,
thanks.
Exactly.
That helps.
And I have an overdue
Let's go
library
die
book
now.
I mean, yeah. I mean, right. We're gonna go die. Right. It just we did see why it happened because we saw it in Chuck's life when he was younger, but it made no sense. And this is where, unfortunately, when we get the reveal of Act 1 at the end of the movie, it made what happened previously make less sense.
Yeah, it made it have less meaning for sure.
And less meaning.
It's like, all those characters that I cared about, Karen Gillan, the Chiwetel Ejiofor, like I genuinely cared for them. I liked the walk with the old man.
Yeah, me too.
I enjoyed their conversation.
Me too.
And the Matthew. I mean, all of that. I felt like that first act, that's technically the third act, really shined.
Agreed.
And then at the end to realize, oh yeah, so that was absolutely pointless and meant nothing. It was just in his head.
And right.
And it's not like he was having these visions.
No.
It's not like these were like...
Exactly.
See, that could make sense.
These were unconscious multitudes within him. Right.
Which makes even less sense and makes me care even less. Yeah, 2.5.
Me too. Me too. I'm definitely taking my rating to 2.5, man. Ryan and I will admit we are fallible. And we have discussed movies before if you've listened to other episodes and gone, I think I rated that a little too low, In retrospect, I'm really liking this movie.
Yeah.
And that does happen. And that's part of the beauty of discussing them, right?
Totally.
Is you get things to unfold and you appreciate them more, or in this instance, a little bit less.
A little bit less. Sorry, folks.
I know. How funny that we were both forgiving in that sense of giving it. So, Ryan, thank you for the discussion. Totally enjoyed that.
We broke it down for sure.
As best we could.
That's one way to put it.
As best we could this early in the morning with only half my coffee. So I want to recommend 5 movies if you liked The Life of Chuck.
Okay.
Or even if you didn't, I'm still going to recommend these.
Okay.
Number 1 is The Matrix, starring Keanu Reeves.
Yes.
This asked the big questions, and it left my mind feeling good about what I don't yet know. And it's also just one of my favorite films.
We're going to have to do that one eventually.
We are.
That's our legacy.
You love it too, don't you?
Oh my God, absolutely love it.
I think I've seen it more than any other movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
we definitely got to watch it.
It gels with my brain. It just does.
I agree. I love it.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
I haven't seen it in a long time too, so that'll be a nice watch.
And we can see that on Peacock. And let's do an episode on that for sure.
Let's do it.
Number 2 is 21 Grams, starring Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, and Naomi Watts.
Ooh, what a cast!
About how a freak accident brings 3 people together. So good. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that on Amazon Video. Number 3, The Truman Show, starring Jim Carrey. I know you love this one.
Classic.
Ed Harris and Laura Linney, about an insurance salesman who begins to suspect that his whole life is a reality TV show. So good. You can stream that on Pluto. Number 4, I think we've recommended this one before. Actually, we've had an episode on it. No, we haven't. No, we haven't yet.
No, we haven't yet, but we will.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yes, that's on
starring
the list.
Jim Carrey again and Kate Winslet. Can you really erase what's in your heart? Isn't that
the big question?
You can stream that on Max. And the 5th one, A Ghost Story, starring Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara, about a recently deceased man who returns as a white-sheeted ghost to reconnect with his wife.
Whoa, yeah, I've seen previews of this. I've never seen the actual movie.
Yeah, I want to.
I want to too. We'll have to do that
because I really want to see how they can pull that off.
Yeah, bizarre.
And you can stream that right now on Cinemax. So just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, as always, you're the main character of your own life. So don't be afraid to take a step back and look at the bigger picture, because sometimes the answers that you've been looking for are lying just beyond the frame. We'll see you next time.
Peace.